guys, and welcome to episode 124 of the OCDstories.com podcast. Now, this episode is very special to me for several reasons. One, because it's based on a weekend that I found very life-changing, which was the OCD Camp, which was only a week ago. I've put sort of a year of prep and research and living with uncertainty into that weekend, and to see it come to life was really meaningful for me, and has changed my life in ways I never expected. So I got on, but this episode is also special, I should say, because I got on several of the campers to share their experience for a few reasons. One, it's an advert for next year, so when I open applications later on in 2018, people who are unsure about the camp, if they want to find out if it's for them, they can absolutely listen to this episode. Secondly, I believe there was going to be a lot of learnings from the campers, and when I was doing these interviews, that came true. They shared a lot of great advice that I feel is going to be useful for you guys. And thirdly, because I've talked about the camp over the last 12 months, I wanted to do this as kind of a wrap-up, just to give you guys some closure and some behind the scenes and what it was like, and what elements you can take into your everyday life and use. So I got 6 of the campers on to talk about their experience, and I asked them a few key questions around kind of what was their highlight, what was it compared to what they expected, what did they learn, would they do it again, and then the fun question at the end was, what would you tell your 20-year-old self? So it's great to hear their answers to that. And some of the key things that came up that were shared by several of the campers was this idea of not feeling alone, not having to explain yourself, and being fully connected with others that have OCD. Just the ambience of the camp, so the stars at night, Elliot playing the guitar, cracking of the fire, etc. They talk about living a value-led life, camp being kind of a relationship, people healing people, sharing, opening up, both through tough times, doing exposures. We did it by challenge, by choice, so it was up to you if you got triggered and you wanted to do an exposure. Pete, the therapist, was there to help you through that, and we talk about some of the breakthroughs people had. For some people, it was the first time they met someone with OCD, and that was such a profound experience. And the group holding the space is something therapists do to allow whatever emotion comes up to come up, and for it to be a safe environment for that to come up. And several of the campers shared this, and I definitely felt this, that we created through group rules at the start of how we wanted to treat each other, what we wanted the camp to be about. And when tough things arose in various campers and the staff, it was held. It was held for that to come to fruition and allow it to release. And that was quite a special thing. So, yeah, I mean, I learned a lot just recording this. It was great to reminisce with these guys and chat to them. Huge thanks to Pete Weiss, who's the therapist from Seattle, who came over to help me replicate what him and his colleagues had achieved for a decade in the States with their OCD camp. And I'll put links in the show notes to that if you're in the States or can get there and you want to do that camp. Pete is a phenomenal therapist, and more than that, he's a wonderful human being. So it was so great to get to know him and spend time with him, and all the campers loved him. So yeah, unbelievable respect and credit goes to him. And also Elliot, my friend, who supported us. He was awesome, and you'll hear him mentioned on this episode. He was funny when humor was really needed. He played the guitar, which brought a great sense of fun on the Saturday night, and I guess kind of catharsis. Like, it was quite healing to hear that music and everyone to sing along. So yeah, massive thanks to him. He flew down from Scotland on his own money, so I greatly appreciate him for that. And also Ian from the camp owner, Big Hat Bush Camp. Credit to him. He was great. He didn't necessarily know much about OCD before this camp, but he was curious, he was open, and that was inspiring, I think, for the campers to be around. So yeah, just generally so happy with how the camp went. Really pleased the amount of applications I got for the camp. I did not expect that many. It was one of the toughest choices I ever had to make, was pick the campers, because everyone I interviewed and applied were fantastic, and I loved chatting with them when I interviewed them. But sadly, I had a limited number of spaces and I had to make that choice. And a lot of it came down to, group dynamics. Different personalities get on with different personalities much easier, much quicker. So I had to kind of make a call largely based on that. So it's sad, but hopefully I'll see those other people that applied at other future camps, and hopefully making those decisions will get a bit easier. So I hope this episode inspires you, and if it's something you feel you may want to do in the future, I'm hoping to do 2 to 3 camps in 2019. Head over to the OCDcamp.com. There you'll be able to sign up to the email list. I'll probably only email you a few times over the next several months, just about updates of the camp. But when I open that portal later on in 2018, you guys will be the first to know who are on that email list. That's the OCDcamp.com. And here it is. Welcome to the show, Helen.
Thank you.
It's good to have you on.
It's great to be on.
Thank you. Obviously, you're at the camp. It was a pleasure to get to know you. So, first question would be, I guess, was there a highlight for you of the weekend?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I guess the highlight was meeting other people with OCD in general, because I was diagnosed with OCD 10 years ago, and I've actually never met anybody else with it. So for me, having it was almost a relief to have a group of people that understand exactly how you're feeling and your experiences.
Yeah.
And I really felt like I'd kind of like found my community, and that's also I guess that's kind of inspired me as well to kind of open up a bit more about it with other people. So I've had some really good chats with my family about it.
Excellent.
And also I'm quite keen. It's really given me some kind of momentum to kind of start raising awareness of it as well.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I think, and I've seen a few members do that, a few campers do that as well. And it's definitely made me more confident to talk about it. And I feel when you have such a great weekend with awesome people who are considered, they have disorders or illnesses, if we want to use that term, and you see how awesome they are, it makes you realize, what do I have to be ashamed of?
Yeah, totally. And I think as well, because like we're quite a lot of us were in completely different stages in our recovery.
Yeah.
That really made it really inspiring to see what other people had done and what other people were starting to do as well. Yeah,
really good point, actually. Okay, so how did the camp compare to what you expected, what you anticipated, versus the actual outcome of it?
I think the camp was kind of much more kind of life-changing than I thought it would be, really. I mean, I think one thing that I really didn't expect was to really feel really emotional when other people were talking about their experiences, and they weren't necessarily upsetting experiences, but just to really kind of feel it. And when other people did exposures, I really felt it, and that for me was a big surprise. And also, I guess I didn't realize actually that how difficult I would find it to open up, and to talk about how I was feeling. And I guess I haven't really done that very much, so that was a big surprise, but a really good thing for me to do.
I suppose it's kind of good you didn't go into it expecting that, because you may have not wanted to show up.
yeah, I guess so, yeah. But I think also, like, one of the really good things was that we didn't know what the program was. Yeah. So when we arrived, like, I had no idea what I was arriving to and what we'd be doing. Obviously we knew about Go 8, but that was the only thing. And I think that was great, like relinquishing that control, and kind of it always being like, right guys, we're going to do this now. It's okay. So that was really, really good for me.
Okay, great. I didn't even think about it like that. I'm just a bit disorganized myself, so I didn't put out the itinerary.
You should take credit.
I'm too honest for that. Or maybe I'll do that going forward. I'll keep it fairly vague.
I think it was really good. Really, really good, yeah.
Cool. All right, thank you. Was there anything you learned in particular, or anything that you took away from the camp?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as I was saying to you earlier, the one thing that I really learned was about the ERP and how to kind of start that, because I hadn't really started it. And for me, it kind of seemed like this big mountain, and I didn't know how to take my first step on it. And that's where Pete really helped me, and we had a good one-to-one chat, and he explained kind of how to find your kind of your smallest exposure that you could possibly do and how to move forward with that. And so for me, that was a huge thing, because I've actually been able to come home and then continue that on afterwards.
Yeah, really powerful. And if I can say, when I was with another camper, and when I came back, you had obviously just done your first exposure, which I wasn't aware of. Pete was there, and you had a lot of distress on your face, and it was tough to see that, but you knew you were doing something that was beneficial for you long term.
Yeah, totally. And I think actually I didn't realize how difficult doing that exposure would be. When we talked about it, I was like, yeah, no, that's cool, that's fine, I can do that, And when we did it, it was just like, it was just really hard hitting. So, but it really did feel like I kind of like taken my first step. So.
Absolutely. And coming back and seeing you sit there and sit with the anxiety and not going to do the compulsion was mega inspiring for me. And it's definitely one of my highlights to see such bravery in a human being. It was inspiring.
Thank you.
No worries. So big question then is, would you ever want to do it again?
Yeah. Stop me. I think you're going to have to run about 6 camps to fit us all in, actually. I would love to do it again. I would. Please make it longer. It was fantastic. And a few more days would have been great as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's good to know. I'll definitely keep that in my books. But no, thank you for obviously wanting to do it again. And I do realize this is the second interview I've done for this podcast, and I'm realizing this question is sounding more and more self-involved, but I'm going to keep asking it because I started. So, different question from the camp now is, if you could pick up the phone to your 20-year-old self, what would you tell that person?
I would, 2 things. I would tell them, don't care so much what other people think. And also that it will be all right, and that you'll get there and you'll learn to live with it, and it actually is part of who you are. Yeah. Nice.
Good message. Cool. Well, thank you for coming on, Helen, and sharing your experience.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the show, Elka.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here and to see your face again, actually, Stu.
Thank you. And it's worth me saying, anyone who hasn't heard our previous episode together, we obviously did one where we explore your story and your recovery journey. And I can't remember what number that was, unless you can.
I can. 102.
There you go. So episode 102. It's worth listening to. It was a good episode. So, first question would be, what was a highlight of the trip for you?
That the most important highlight actually was that Stuart, you and the OCD Stories podcast had a major impact on my recovery. So my highlight was actually to get accepted to take part in this camp, which was a personal highlight. And then, of course, getting to know you and the fellow campers, Pete, Elliot, and Ian in person was the best for me. For me, relationships are most important and part of my highest set of values. So this was a highlight for me. And then, of course, being in nature with you.
Yeah, thank you. No, I appreciate your kind words, and I agree. It was the friendships and relationships that were built on those 48 hours that were priceless.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, I guess the next question is, compared to what you expected from the camp. We always, before we go on things, we always have ideas of what it's going to be like. I guess, how did the camp compare to what you thought it would be?
Actually, I had quite romantic and yeah, quite romantic expectations. For example, I had imagined myself sitting in a group of open, brave people around the campsite fire, which came true. And we had this. Also, I was expecting some music to be played, and Elliot played the guitar, which was hard moving for me. And I still have his songs in my head, and I have to admit, I still have to cry when I think about the atmosphere around the campfire. I was expecting to see the sky. I think I did not see the sky so much because there were a lot of trees.
Yeah.
But the sky was also visible, so it was fantastic.
Yeah.
And then the cracking of the fire, the whole atmosphere was the way I was expecting it. But also a lot of things happened that I was not expecting, and they exceeded my expectations even.
Yeah. Excellent. No, I agree. There was one point when Elliot was playing the guitar, and I was just I was semi laying down, and I looked up, and through the trees I could see some of the stars, and it was really nice evening.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
Absolutely. So I guess the question for me is, what did you learn during the camp, and what did you take away from it?
I learned during the camp that it is wonderful to be together with people who I put it like this now, who also get it. And we had only 48 hours, but since we were able to talk at the same eye level, and we were all experiencing similar situations with OCD, I think it did not need a lot of time to get to know each other and to get very close. And we understood each other without speaking many words, I think. This was very important for me. And yes, what I also thought was great, that the feeling of not being alone with this disorder, to be able to help each other. And I was noticing throughout the camp, like probably everybody else, we all had our little triggers in the camp. Fortunately, everybody had different triggers, although they were all OCD related, and OCD is OCD, and the topic is always trash. But I think this was wonderful in a way, because we could help each other, and we could also, during the camp, motivate each other to start experimenting with our OCD, which actually I hadn't expected to be able to do so much, but it sort of evolved during the camp, that we all were trying to face our anxieties, or start to face it. And I think this was, for me, a wonderful thing to notice, and also to experience, and also to see others succeed in their little efforts, and then myself also succeeding in my little efforts. Yeah, this was wonderful.
Absolutely. I agree. It was inspiring to see others around you pushing themselves, and obviously you yourself volunteered to do an exposure.
I did, yeah.
Did you want to kind of go into that, if you feel it's helpful?
If it's not too embarrassing, I can. I think well, I don't mind. I don't mind, because I do have a contamination OCD. For those who haven't listened to episode 1 or 2, and when I got to the camp, I already came and was prepared to do something which I had never done before: to sit on a toilet seat in a public in a public toilet. I hadn't expected it to be a porta potty porta potty toilet, which actually I have to say here, because I want Ian to also feel good. His toilet was very clean, I would say. I've seen terrible toilets, but his toilet was clean, and so I succeeded in doing this. But I have to admit, I went beyond with the help of Pete, our therapist, who very compassionately and empathetically sort of managed to take me a little further than I had initially wanted to do. So I decided to touch the toilet seat and not wash hands afterwards. And thanks to you, Stuart, you went with me and helped me, supported me during this. And I'm sitting here, I survived, and I feel totally proud of myself that I was able to do this. And I would have never thought that I could do this in my whole life. Actually, I would have never put such an exposure on my list to do. And it only appeared, this idea just appeared during the camp. It was inspired by the atmosphere, I would say.
Yeah.
And yeah.
No, it was really good. And it was encouraging to see. And then later on, by the fire, kind of your own will, without anyone saying anything, you kind of put your hands to your mouth. And you hadn't washed them, done a compulsion to get rid of the potential contamination. And
yes. And maybe I can add this as well here. What I thought was so stimulating for me, when I got back from this exposure, I felt the group was so supportive, because everybody doing exposures knows that it's not the end once you have touched something. The hard part comes after touching the thing I want to avoid. So when Pete asked me to ask the group of campers whether they would stand that I touch things they would then also touch, and the group of campers decided to be in this exposure with me, and did not treat me like someone they wanted now to avoid, but I was able to touch the pencils and the paper that it was handed around. This was huge for me. This made me feel so much part of the group. It was actually something that maybe I would have needed to feel much earlier in my life also. So this was a life-changing event for me there. So thank you very much. And I'm still carrying this spirit now with me. It's 1 week ago now that this happened in the camp. And the week after the camp, I tried to go beyond what I normally do, and it worked.
Yeah, really good.
So the camp goes beyond the 48 hours.
That's a really good point. And yeah, absolutely. I still feel it. We talked about some changes I've made in my own life because of the sheer inspiration I got from everyone, both seeing, how they joined in and just being around that energy. It was awesome. And yeah, I think, like you said, it's only 48 hours, technically 3 days, but 48 hours. And sometimes that's all you need. If it's the right environment, it's set up well, and it's a trusting and safe environment, there can be some big changes. Yeah, absolutely. So next question is, and I may have asked you this on the episode we did, so if I did, I'm sorry. If not, if I did, I'll answer it again anyway, which is, what would you tell your 20-year-old self if you could speak to 20-year-old Elka?
Oh, I think you did not ask me this because you changed you changed this afterwards. I would say the 20-year-old Elka, years old Elka, that she's not alone, and that she should express her feelings, try to express her feelings, try to make herself vulnerable, and open up more to others, because by opening up, it is easier to get help, and also not to be shy to ask for help. I would tell this young Elka to speak up more about what is going on inside herself.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully that message resonates with other people who are experiencing the same. But yeah, thank you for being such a great camper, being so involved in the camp, and for your words of encouragement running up to the camp as well. I appreciate that.
And thank you to Stuart for giving me and the other campers this unique experience in the camp. It is wonderful. I would come again anytime.
Actually, that was one of my questions which I forgot to ask, which was, would you do it? Would you do it again? And you've just answered that.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
great.
I would definitely. But one thing I would change.
Yeah.
I would get myself a thicker mattress.
Yeah, it was colder than I expected.
And harder.
Oh, harder, yeah. Well, I expected the ground to be hard, but
I did not. So this is the only thing that I would change, and it is something that I can buy.
Absolutely. And I think the cold, it wasn't freezing, obviously, but it was colder than we would have liked it. And in a weird way, I think that was good, because in the morning we were all sharing, we had common sort of pain of this cold night, and we could share and bond over that experience.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And for me, I like the evening setting around the campfire, but I also like this freshness in the morning, the new day with all the things that might come up, all the uncertainty that is coming, and also being a little cold, sitting together around a campfire, having pancakes, that's and looking like we looked when we came out of the sleeping bag, so natural. It was fantastic. I love it.
Welcome to the show, Dom.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you on. Obviously, I got to know you at the camp, which is why you're on this episode. And I'd just be interested to ask you a few questions about it, because I know it was a special time for kind of all of us.
It was,
yeah. So it'd be good to unpack some of that. So first question is kind of, was there a highlight for you of the camp?
I think so. I think personally it was all, I think the first night, when, for me, cooking's a big thing. And when they sort of said, okay, you can cook the mince for the chili and things, it was sort of the first night, but for me that sort of set the tone. And I think after that, that's when I sort of settled in, because I was sort of facing exposure, which I kind of wanted to do.
Yeah.
When I was there, so I was happy with that, and that was probably, I think that was a highlight, because it sort of it set me in motion for the rest of the weekend. But obviously, getting to know the people and Go Ape was awesome as well. That was great fun.
All right, awesome. Go 8 was really good, and obviously you were going for it, which was cool. On the cooking thing, was there anything that kind of, I guess, made you want to do it, or was it just kind of you wanting to give it your all, which is why you kind of went from it from the start?
I think a bit about. I think I did want to give it my all. I wanted to make sure that when I came to the camp, I wanted to come back and feel like I'd achieved something, I'd learned something, I could go forward with it. But yeah, I wanted to do it because, for me, I live on my own, so cooking's important, and I want to be able to cook a variety of dishes, not just the same sort of chicken with rice or beans on toast or a fry up or something that's or anything from a tin. So for me, it was important to learn to cook, I say learn to cook things on a campfire with the same spatula, without being not changing the spatula 12 times when you're cooking, the same thing the whole way through, and on a campfire, which isn't going to be evenly heated. It's like a gas on your oven. So for me, I really wanted to do that, because if I could do it there, I could do it here. That's how I saw it.
Cool. And how's your cooking been since the camp?
I I did mince and tatties, as we say in Scotland, mince and potatoes. Sort of my first night back, I think, and it was really easy. It was I sort of did it in a big pot, the same as Ian told us to do it, and it was good. It was, I mean, my timings are pretty bad, but I'll get there. I think we're doing spaghetti bolognese tomorrow, so mince again.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, well, let us know how it goes. I did spag bowl this evening. Okay, so I guess for me, I had expectations of how the camp was going to go, and I won't say my perception of it. Maybe I'll do that at the intro of this episode, but be interesting to see what you expected versus kind of the camp itself, what you got.
Okay, so I wasn't sure what I was expecting. I think because I've met people before with OCD, but I assumed that I don't know. I assumed that everyone that was going to this camp would be. I mean, I suppose everyone was very strong, and including myself. I thought It made everyone else. I think that made me feel strong as well. So I was expecting people to sort of really be struggling with everything. Where there was moments where people had to face their fears, but they sort of smashed through it without any. I didn't see anyone sort of. There was a few times when people were worried, but I think they dealt with it admirably.
Yeah.
And I think I was expecting, I suppose. I guess I was expecting more exposures and a lot more sort of breakdowns, but I was pleasantly surprised that it was done in such a way that we did do exposures, but not in a sense that we were feeling uncomfortable. It was always, if you want to do one, you can. I think that was very good. I think it actually went better than I thought, because I was obviously worried. I was anxious about going. What would it be like? But within sort of 30 minutes, everyone was so open. It was so easy just to settle in, which was brilliant, I think.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think Pete set it up as he said, challenge by choice, right? So you don't have to do anything you don't want, and there was hardly any exposures. It was more kind of allowing the natural environment to trigger you, and if that happens, that
was it. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so was there anything you learned from the weekend or that you took away?
Definitely, I think I took away. I think what I took away was more to sort of. It was kind of to learn to let the thoughts sit. And I had a moment yesterday. I was at martial arts class, and some parents said their child was ill, so they couldn't partake. And I thought, oh God, she must be ill. And I sort of quickly got away from her. Yeah. I managed to train without going near any of the kids. I was with all the adults who were sort of who seemed okay. But that thought stayed with me, and I said, you know what, I'm just going to let it happen, because everyone has been so strong. And I've heard Claire, and sorry, I shouldn't say names, but other people in the camp have been, not just her, but everyone else has sort of been so strong to let the thoughts happen. And I've thought, you know what, I'm going to do it as well, because what thoughts that affect other people may not be worrying for me, but I've had to see it as a habit. My thoughts, it's the way I see my thoughts, the same they see their thoughts. Yeah. And that for me was very hard to understand until I went to the camp. So having seen that, I thought, you know, I'll sit with the thought. And the anxiety, it did fade eventually. But I think for me, it lingers too much. So I woke up in the night and I felt really, really, really ill. And I thought I couldn't go to work today. I was so ill. But I sort of I kind of crawled up, and eventually it passed. Yeah. But learning to sit with the thoughts is something that I want to do more, because I don't do it enough. I always seek reassurance. I've just got to learn to, you know what, it's happened. Let's just focus on present, not worry about what's happened. Yeah. And I think that's what I took away the most, I think. And a good support group of people, which is absolutely fantastic as well.
Yeah, absolutely. The group's been fantastic, and good for you. It's not easy to sit with it, but it's a skill. So I'm glad the camp kind of inspired that. So a big question then is, would you ever do it again?
Absolutely, 100%. I recommend it to anyone that's suffering. I think, again, if you get nothing out of it, you'll get support group. I think that's so important, because with everyone at the camp, there's no worries about being OCD, if it makes sense. You know, you don't have to hide it. People are going to understand. I think that's helpful for anyone going through it. And I would love to, I would do it again. I would help, volunteer, whatever it would be. I'd love to try it again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's thank you, first of all, for wanting to do it again. But also, I think that's a good point, that whether it's the camps or whether it's a conference like OCD Action OCD UK or the ISDF, or whether it's a support group or a meetup like the one I run in London, there's something special about being around others who 100% get it. Even if it's a different theme, they all get, it's all OCD, they all understand. And there's something about knowing you don't have to explain when you're talking about it is just very special.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, cool. So you don't have to come to the camp to get that feeling, guys, is what I want to put out there.
No, yeah,
but, it's a nice benefit. So, Dom, what would you tell your 20-year-old self if you could call him?
20-year-old self, wow.
I know it's only a few years ago, but...
Yeah, no, it feels like ages ago. I think you've got time on your side. Do what you enjoy. And I'm still trying to learn this now. Do what you enjoy and don't worry about, I suppose, finding someone or, just sort of think about what you want to do in life as career-wise. Yeah. Because although I'm still young enough to maybe make a change, it would be nice to be 20 again and have only be 2 years older than someone that's just starting university. It'd be good to be in that. So I could say, okay, I fancy doing something completely different. And I've still got, I suppose 5 more years than I do now to make that happen. And I'm still young.
Yeah.
But I think, just find something I want to do and just pursue it and study hard and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Those sorts of, I think that was what I would tell myself, if I'm honest. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Good advice. Well, thanks for coming on, Dom, and sharing your experience.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Welcome to the show, Claire.
Thank you for having me, Stu.
Well, it's great to have you on, and thank you for being at the camp, obviously. So the first question I want to ask is, was there a highlight for you from the camp?
Oh, that's a really difficult question. That's really difficult because it was all incredible, actually, and probably one of those things where, like, the camp was full of highlights of my life in terms of moving forward and connecting with others. So that's really difficult. I think probably the highlight would be maybe not a specific moment, but more just the general feeling, because people, I've never been in a situation where people have supported each other so much, and I haven't had support from other people like that ever before. And I think that's just because it's such a unique environment, and the tone of support that was set from the moment that we all arrived, I think just allowed everybody to be open, be honest, and just kind of flourish in terms of helping each other. So I think the highlight would just be like that, just that sense of like it being a safe space, and being, I've never experienced a space where I've been able to share about my OCD like that before. It was just completely unique in that sense. So yeah, I think rather than a moment, it would be a feeling, and the feeling itself is even hard to describe.
Yeah.
But it stays with you as well. It like, I've had some challenges since camp, some exposures and things, but I've really just felt that people are still with me, which is really lovely.
Absolutely, I agree. There's that kind of that spirit that remains, as we were talking about before, that I guess you don't kind of feel alone, because it's almost like you've got those other campers cheering you on in the back of your mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And just cheering you on in, I think in a way that, other sort of supports I've had in terms of my OCD, whether it's my therapist or I've got a support group that I go to. Don't get me wrong, they're incredible, but this was just really another level, because I think just that environment allows you to share. For me, it allowed me to share a lot more vulnerability than I had before. And when you're able to do that, that takes a bit of power away from the OCD.
Yeah.
And it gets scared, because it goes, oh, you're showing people what it's really like.
Yeah.
That means that the OCD becomes vulnerable rather than you the whole time. And that was incredible. So I just think it just like a whole nother level of that feeling of people really cheering you on and just rooting for you. So yeah, it was just incredible.
Yeah, really well said. Okay, so how did the camp, because obviously we always have expectations before we come on something like this. I know I did. How did the outcome compare to what you expected it to be?
I think quite dramatically. I didn't expect. I sort of well, obviously I had in my mind, the first thing was just like the challenge of actually camping, and being out of my comfort zone and doing something that's in a new environment. So obviously I had that awareness of how that might challenge me, and then I knew that we would be sharing, and I hoped I would feel supported. But I think the thing that was really different for me was because I was in a place where I could experience my vulnerability more than I actually have in the past. For me, it was a definite experience of actually realizing what the OCD does to me, which has always been very much internalized for me, but this was kind of the first time I felt like I could express that a bit more. And I definitely have sort of reflected about times where I thought I've been communicating and reaching out for support, but actually I haven't really been able to explain how much anguish it can cause. So I think that actually it was a lot more exposure than I thought I would experience, and a lot more. I sort of thought I understood. At least I thought I was starting to understand my OCD. But I feel like just in the space of 48 hours, I have a completely deeper understanding of what it does, and therefore more motivation to try to, claim my life back a bit, because I can't keep letting it cause me that level of anxiety. It's just isn't gonna. That's no way to live. So I think and I knew that, like, obviously I knew that I hadn't had any kind of ERP before, and I didn't really know. I sort of knew sort of how it worked, but I was also very confused because a lot of my OCD compulsions can be mental compulsions, so I didn't really know how it'd work for those kinds of things. So that level of learning, just through experiencing triggers to my OCD and having the support of the other campers, of yourself, and then also of Pete, to understand what it does to me, has just kind of moved me further than I could have ever imagined in such a short space of time. So it was just a lot more kind of understanding of OCD for me and for others, and understanding of treatment options than I thought I would have ever have gained in such a short space of time. So hugely, like, literally just invaluable. And I just hope that other people who are suffering at the moment have the opportunity to experience this in the future, because it's literally, as soon as I'd finished camp and then my next therapy session, I was like, ERP, need to do this, understand this now. Didn't get it at all before, but now really understand it. And then to be doing my own exposures and things, and sort of taking my OCD on in a way where I never would have thought I could do that before, and with the support of the other campers, being able to go on the Facebook group and saying, I did this, oh my goodness, and they're there for you and they're pleased for you. Or if it's challenging and it hasn't worked as much, then they're there to kind of help you and explore that. It's just wonderful.
Yeah, that's awesome, and it makes me so happy to hear that kind of shift in you, and the realizing more of the mental compulsions, and also kind of that you've had enough of OCD kicking dirt in your face, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had just got into a pattern of so much avoidance in my life, whereas camp didn't give me that option. I had to face things, and that made me realize that actually I'd kind of moved to that point where it kind of wasn't attacking me so much on a daily basis. But that's because I'd adapted my life to be so in a place where I felt I was safe, that actually I was missing out on a lot. So I think that's hugely my drive going forward, actually, is the ERP, but then also just to expand my life further, just in general, just try and, even things that aren't related to my OCD, but things that would actually just put me out of my comfort zone and I'm unsure about, I've just realised I need to take those opportunities if I'm going to sort of get back a lot of what it's taken. So that is just amazing. I wouldn't have thought I would be saying that kind of thing at all.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you for going into so much detail. And it was a privilege to see you were triggered, if I can say, quite naturally. They weren't kind of conscious exposures, which and you could have you could have done avoidance, but you didn't. You really stuck with it until your anxiety came down, and that was really inspiring to see.
Oh, thank you, and thank you so much to everyone who is just there with me and was able to sort of support me but without reassuring me. That was amazing as well, because I think learning OCD doesn't just affect you, it affects all the people around you, and the people around you are a huge part in either sometimes inadvertently, and it's an incredibly painful experience if you realize that you've actually been helping somebody's OCD, but everyone naturally falls into that trap because you want to reassure people. That's naturally what human beings want to do. So to kind of experience as well people supporting me in a way that wasn't feeding my OCD, I think has really helped me and my husband start to talk about our relationship together and how we've both got things to learn if we're going to really be in a situation where we become stronger than the OCD. So that was again incredible, because without camp I wouldn't have really had that experience, and I wouldn't have been able to come back and talk to my husband about how I felt and what happened, and therefore we've had conversations that we wouldn't have been able to have before. It's just incredible. After just 48 hours, sort of have to keep going, I was only there for 48 hours. How is this possible?
Very true. It felt like a lot longer in a good way. I mean that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Brilliant. Thank you. And so the golden question is, would you ever want to do it again?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It's hands down the best, the most challenging, but the most rewarding experience I've ever had. And one of the things that I wasn't expecting afterwards was this it was really hard. I always had to kind of like in a way kind of grieve the fact that you guys aren't all there in the morning when we wake up and we're not all sleeping in our tents and then there to support each other. That was a challenge that's definitely worth, it's this very, very small kind of downside to it. But just it's, as with all incredible, it's like when we talked about our values and how, of course, then we have our fears that our OCD feeds off, and we can't have one without the other. Yeah. You can't have that incredible, life-changing and moving experience without then having the challenge of adapting to what life becomes then without that. But it's morphed into something then that's even more valuable, just to have, you can't be on camp all the time. You've got to be in the world and your life that you live in, and actually it's moved me to a place where I'm determined to get more value out of my daily life than I have before, because I've just realised how kind of closed and small my world has become. But just having those connections with people has been incredible, and being able to say, like some of the other campers, we've said to each other, I've been so sad, me too, and it's okay because someone else is too, and it allows you to adjust. And it just, I think, from what I've heard from everybody, people are really starting to flourish already. So just think of what you could do if you're given the opportunity to go again. Although I have to say, I think everybody that has OCD needs to experience this. And I don't know, there's too many people. I don't know how we achieve that, but that's got to be the goal, because it's just a unique environment, and it challenges you in such an intense but accessible and kind of loving and kind way. It's just so, yeah, I would absolutely love to do it again, because I've never had anything in such a short space of time give me such like payback in the bucket load of life changingness. Totally wonderful. Wonderful. So yeah, huge to you.
Thank you for the kind words, and I hope to see you at another one. I'm juggling with the idea of doing 3 next year, so
free. Okay, but so Stu, this comes with a little like a kind of health and safety warning, which I'm quite good at. You have to look after yourself. You are worth your weight in gold, and no pressure or anything, but in this country you're like the king of bringing a better life for people with OCD over here, because you've got the healthcare professionals, and we have more and more people are getting access to things they need, although it's still got a long way to go. But you are the one that, like, you can just go onto YouTube and you can watch the OCD stories for free if you want. I mean, that's amazing. And you've connected with sufferers from all over the world, people who are at different levels of their recovery, and then professionals all over the world. It's amazing. I don't want to put too much pressure on you, but literally we are all so grateful. And what's so important is that you take care of yourself, because you lead by example in terms of overcoming OCD. But also part of that is that self-care is so important, because the OCD just wants to take all of that away. Do what I say, do this. It never tells you to love yourself, to slow down, to relax. Never. But that's what you have to start doing if you're going to keep winning the war against it. So 3 camps would be absolutely incredible. Don't get me wrong. I'm like, yes, that would be amazing. That would be incredible. But please, at the same time, take so much care of yourself, and make sure you've always got Elliot to speak to make you laugh.
No, thank you, Claire. That those words mean a lot, and I'm a bit speechless. Yeah, I agree. I think I said it on the podcast, I do need to probably get some more help for around the podcast, especially to keep that going at its current rate. With the camps, it's kind of no weekend has ever given me so much personally. Like, even now I feel so grateful and blessed in life because of that weekend. So I'm hoping that 3 camps amplify that feeling. But if it doesn't, then I can always dial back.
You completely deserve to have that feeling, and this is what is really inspiring as well, because actually you think like people that run the camp were at different stages in their own OCD story. I mean, there were some of us that hadn't done ERP at all. There were others that had done quite a bit. There were others that had had treatment in the past and then weren't necessarily engaging with things at that particular time. There were some that felt that they really could be helped, and others that felt nothing's working, I don't know what to do. But it really made me realise the value of people coming together and being those examples for each other. And you've gone such a long way that it's so lovely to see that there's still reward. There's always reward, because it can develop into something else, and it just develops further and further into helping more and more people. So I'm so pleased that you got so much out of it, because 100% you deserve that. And again, it's just like another kick in the face to OCD. So it's amazing. So I'm so pleased for you, but huge thank yous. Literally.
Thank you, Claire.
I can't put it into words. My God.
I really appreciate it. So last question then. What would you tell your 20-year-old self if you could pick up the phone and call her?
Oh my goodness. That she needed to tell someone. Yeah, just that she just needed to tell someone what was happening. Because I mean, when I was 20, that was when it was a kind of turning point in the wrong direction. That's when the OCD really, it kind of got its opportunity. It had been there, and it had been quite problematic before that. But I think as well, when you're that sort of age, there's so much happening in life, and things change a lot. And that can be a really good thing. But for OCD, it's an opportunity, because it says you need me as your constant, because I'm always here for you. And I listened to that message. I mean, I was at uni and I was under a lot of pressure, and I remember feeling like it was there for me, and it was keeping me safe. And if I had have and that's where things like what you're doing is amazing, because if more people realize what it is, then actually I might not have been able to talk about it myself, but maybe somebody would have seen it. I mean, I was at university and I was studying biology, and I remember people would sort of laugh at me because I was always the last to finish my experiments. I was the last to finish my experiments because I started to get into this place where things had to be done just more than once, and I'd become so unsure. I had no trust in myself at all. I would sometimes just question if I'd actually even got out of bed that morning, but I'd somehow found myself where I was. So it said, check this, do this again. You can't trust yourself, but you can trust me. And maybe if more people knew, they would have seen things in me, or maybe I would have known and then been able to talk to somebody. It might not have been people I know, but maybe I would have actually, called up. I used to call the Samaritan sometimes and say how down and desperate I felt, but actually maybe I would have been able to say, actually, I'm aware that it actually could be this thing called OCD. And then maybe that didn't happen for me until I was about 25, that sort of age. And then that was the beginnings of actually getting some help. But even then, I think it takes a long time. And camp was one of my obsessions, is that I don't have OCD anyway.
Yeah.
So for a long time before camp, I was literally checking all the symptoms. I was doing like all of the tests to see what if I'm taking a place away from somebody that's really got OCD, because I'm a fraud, I'm a bad person, I don't deserve this. And just to be able to now be in a place where, because of camp, I'm like, okay, I've met other people that experience these things, and that's part of it. I can now see it in such a different way. And as soon as you see it for what it is a part of you, but it's an illness, then you can start to take it on in a different way. I mean, that's been a huge part of me starting to do some exposures and things, because I've actually kind of started to see the OCD in a different way, not just this kind of scary stories all the time in my head. It's actually become a more tangible thing for me. So if I could have had those experiences when I was 20, rather than just kind of spiraling like I did, then it would have, it is a difficult one, because you don't want to get into that. You got to get that balance between not getting into that place where you're down because of the things that it's cost you, but you are aware of them, so that you're more motivated to try and make the most of what's in front of you. But that would have been, I would have had a lot more time in my life where I would have been less closed to things, and I would have been taking risks and enjoying things more. So yeah, I would just say, tell someone, talk to someone, because if you are in a place where you can explain what's happening in your head, then it's like, that's OCD. It works. It's different content, but the thought process and the experiences are the same for us all. That's why I think it's such a kind of it's a well practiced illness. It seems to have kind of managed to use all the same tricks and tactics on all of us to bring us to our knees, frankly, and that's a scary thing. But now people are starting to fight back and show that they can get better, but nobody gets better on their own, and that's got to come from awareness and talking. So I think that's what I would say. But I'd also give my 20-year-old self like a massive hug, and now knowing what it means to have a massive group hug of people that get it and understand, it'd be really nice if she could have one of those as well.
Cool. No, really, really good words of advice. And yeah, I think awareness is vital. And, you know, on that note, obviously, thank you for coming on and letting people hear your voice, because that is raising awareness.
Oh, thank you for having me, Stu. It's just the whole experience has just been just life-changing. And I just, it's one of those things, it's like thank you becomes one of those weird words, because you're like, oh, when, like, if I buy something in Tesco, I say thank you, and obviously I'm grateful, that's awesome, whatever I'm buying, but it's the same word to you, and it's like, that's just not right. We need some kind of super uber amazing full of value word, because, you know, I just hope that everyone with OCD has the opportunity to engage with things like this, because it was just literally life-changing. But, you know, last year there was no camp. This year there was, thanks to you. So yeah, just brilliant. And obviously thanks to Pete as well. I mean, it was an incredible experience to be able to meet someone that can understand all of you as a group and also as individuals, and then to be able to support you again in this way that moves you forward and challenges you, but at the same time with huge compassion and kindness. I think that was the thing about everybody, and that's probably the thing I've taken away, is like this way of being able to be strong, but you have compassion, and actually compassion is a really strong thing. And I hope that I can, like, through therapy and through reading and things and meditation, sort of really start to develop some of that myself, because it's just a really awesome quality, and I'm just really, really grateful for everybody's compassion on that camp. It was definitely like a case of, like, human beings at their best, OCD, you're going down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. And you know, it was a pleasure to get to know you, and you know, you've got love in buckets, and that's amazing, as it was said on the camp. So yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Stu, and thank you for having me on the podcast, and just, yeah, thanks for being totally awesome.
Welcome to the show, Amanda.
Hi.
It's good to have you on. So I just want to know, was there any highlights for you or anything you took away from the camp?
I think real sense of understanding and sense of friendship. It was really quite an emotional experience. So yeah, and a lot of knowledge, I think, just on, you know, because you focus on yourself, but when you're with the group, it was really, you know, really interesting to hear other people's stories and everybody's versions of it. So yeah, a lot of knowledge and understanding, I suppose, more than anything.
Yeah, I think that's really good. You kind of bounce off others, and you see them in their suffering. You also see them in their triumphs.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I guess it's almost kind of like looking into a mirror to an extent.
Yeah, yes, no, and you know, you do, I think the more you get to know the people, the more you understand where they're coming from, and you can see, I think one big thing I did notice was how hard people have to work at hiding it, because there was a couple of instances where I could tell that somebody was really struggling, and I could see what they were doing to try and overcome the sort of it being visible to everybody, whether it be tapping or, you know, whatever that habit might have been. And I think, you know, we all individually, to appear okay in normal life, that's what we do, and it's hard. It's really hard to do. And I mean, we were sort of quite free on the camp to either exhibit or talk about what we were struggling and what we were, you know, doing or not doing, sort of avoiding and everything. But obviously you can't do that when you're with people that don't understand or don't know. So you have to sort of appear okay, and that's just absolutely exhausting in itself. And I think everybody agreed that on the camp.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, really good point. So how did your expectations of what you thought the camp would be align to what it actually was?
It exceeded it.
Cool.
I think I learnt so much about the outdoors, which was just lovely. Just all the camping, and the cooking was amazing as well. And it's learning how to cook and what to cook. We cooked everything outside, and that was just great. And what you can, just the skills we learn. I think it was just fabulous. Loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I enjoyed it as well. Like the matchless fire lighting and that type of stuff was really good.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, for me, I have put up a tent before, but even doing that, which I haven't done for a long time, was great. And the loo, which was everybody's problem, but we all got on with it, and you just do because we had to. And I think that was another sort of thing about the camp, is actually we all had to muck in and we all had to just get on with it, whatever our fears were. It was, how do we overcome that in order to survive for the next couple of days, which we did, despite having used loads and loads and loads of water apparently.
A lot.
Yeah. Yes, that was pointed out.
Okay, cool. So was there anything in particular that you learnt during the weekend?
I think one thing I realised was how lonely the illness is on a day-to-day, just day-to-day. I think because you can't talk about it, or even if people know, and even if people have some kind of understanding, they don't really understand what's going on in your head or anything, or how you're trying, how hard it is to maybe do something when you're at that cross of like, can I do this or shouldn't I do it? And if I do, this might happen, and all of that kind of thing. And you're thinking that, or you're second guessing sort of virtually everything you do. And I don't think people understand that. And even when you do succeed at something, there's not necessarily somebody to share that success with. Because it's that, I managed to do this today, which is a huge achievement, but obviously it's like, yeah, and so. And I think that I really learned. I think, how lonely you are with it all. Whether you are or aren't trying to find it, either way. It is and I think, again, everybody on the camp sort of felt that. I mean, there were a couple that had never met anybody else with OCD, so they'd never really talked about it other than with a therapist. And even then, talking to some people, how much do they really understand of what's going on inside? They know how to deal with it, but they don't know what you're going through every single day. So yeah, I think I learned that actually it's quite lonely, and maybe we do need to talk about it a bit more.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. I think that was a big thing. And as you say, for some people, it was the first time they'd met anyone with OCD, and that was quite shocking to me, because I guess I'm sheltered by this podcast and the amount of people I've reached because of it. I have got to know loads, so it seems like everyone in the world has OCD to me, because they're the majority of the people I speak with. But I guess for a lot of people that's not the case, and it was good to see the camp kind of change that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I have, since we came back, I've been fairly open about what the camp, because I turned up with all those bites on my leg, and everybody was asking me what I'd been up to and stuff, and I said, well, I've been on a camp, and actually I went on to say it was sort of a therapy camp. It was, and explain what it was, and whether I'd have done that before. I mean, I did with close friends, but it's as it is. And I suppose another thing I learnt was that it doesn't necessarily define me. It's something that I have, and something that I have to manage. And I think, seeing other people and how they were dealing with it when we were away, it takes an awful lot of determination and strength to do that. So it sort of defines your character a little bit, that if you're able to actually talk about it and actually say, no, this isn't me. This is a part of me, but I'm dealing with it and managing it. And it takes a lot of sort of courage and strength to do that.
Yeah, really good point. I absolutely agree. So the golden question is, would you ever want to do it again?
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah. No, without a doubt, it was it was really great, really, really lovely people, and really nice to be able to support other people as well, which we all did. We all, individually had our moments that we found tricky and stuff. Even you walking across the Go Ape.
Oh, yeah. Terrifying.
It was scary stuff.
Yeah.
But so yes, I would. I think it was great, and I just love being outdoors. And you do realise how, but I know there's a lot of research and all of that at the minute, but how beneficial it is just being outside.
Yeah.
And being able to sort of share that with some people was really great. So yes, absolutely.
Cool. Thank you. So last question then is, if you could pick up the phone and call your 20-year-old self, what would you tell that Amanda?
Gosh, probably to be more forgiving. I'm really quite hard on myself, I think. In all areas of life, I think I'm quite hard on myself. So yeah, probably be a bit kinder, take a bit of self-care before things get too far, and realising that. And it was like one of the points where we had on the camp. It's to enjoy, to laugh, to be able to laugh at things ourselves, because life is heavy at times, and if you can't do that, then it becomes even harder.
Yeah, very, very true, and very good point. And obviously Elliot was there to help us laugh.
Yeah, he was hysterical. I mean, he really did. He just for the moment that he came out in his tech pajama bottoms, and he was a very funny guy, and I can see why he's a really good friend of yours. So, and his singing around the fire was just amazing.
Yeah.
And I think we all loved that moment. We were just, you could just see everybody just chill and things. So yeah, that was really great.
Absolutely.
Really, really great.
Cool. Well, thank you obviously for coming on the show, and even more so for coming on the camp.
Oh no, thank you for doing it. It really was, a really great thing for you to do, and like I said, it's helped a lot of people, and hopefully we'll continue to do so if you do more.
Welcome to the show, Jess.
Hello, thank you.
It's good to have you on, and obviously have you at the camp.
Yeah, it's good to be here, and yeah, the camp was awesome.
Cool. No, I appreciate it. And is there a highlight for you from it?
Oh wow. I mean, there were so many. I think probably the thing that I found most powerful was on like the last evening when we were all kind of sitting around the campfire. Everyone had kind of experienced the whole camp together, and we were going around and saying like how kind of what we thought of each other, I suppose. And I think that was a massive turning point for me, because I just heard loads of people say, kind of how strong I was, and how I should kind of be proud that, I kind of carry on every day. And I think I'd never really thought of mental health in that way. I'd always kind of felt really ashamed and guilty, and never sort of felt proud of myself. So I think, yeah, that was really powerful, hearing those kind of words from everyone. Yeah, that's probably my highlight.
Wow, yeah. I agree. That exercise which Pete came up with was phenomenally powerful.
It was, amazing. It still kind of goes around in my head now, like just everything people were saying will stay with me for a long time for sure.
Awesome. Okay, so how did the camp, I guess because we all have expectations before we do anything, so how did the outcome of the camp compare to those expectations?
Yeah, I mean, what I was expecting, I think obviously from coming to some of your meetups, it was really nice just to meet other people with OCD, and I think I was kind of expecting it to be a little bit the same of that, and we just kind of chat a little bit, but I just got so much more than what I expected from it, to kind of expose myself in terms of telling more of my story in front of people and kind of being vulnerable in that way. I wasn't expecting to do that, but actually that has meant that I've been able to turn like massive corners in terms of recovery. And just everyone, I think that just the whole atmosphere and the connections that you made, I didn't think I would kind of form those connections with people, and it's something special. It's different to kind of a relationship that you have with anyone else kind of in your life, to meet someone that completely gets it, and you could kind of see the exact same mechanism in everyone's brain, but just working in very slightly different ways depending on the person and obviously what they care about and things. And that was just, yeah, so powerful. The kind of the emotion and the connection that you got with people, I think that was I wasn't expecting kind of level of that. That was awesome.
Oh, wow, cool. Yeah, I completely agree. So was there anything in particular that you learned or that you took away from the camp?
Yeah, loads. Like, I think obviously I've done ERP and I've done a lot of therapy, but in terms of like taking things away for life, I learned so much just in like 48 hours. I think one of the things that I kind of am trying to carry on as well was like I just kind of felt proud of myself for the first time for actually having OCD and for kind of fighting for my life, I suppose. I think that I kind of just felt really proud of. So I felt proud. I think, what else did I take away? Just like new friends, like so many kind of new friends and connections, and just a support network that I didn't really have. Like obviously I have amazing family and friends, and you know they do an absolutely amazing job, but to have people who completely just kind of get it and have experienced it, that kind of support work I think is just invaluable. And yeah, just a bit more strength, I think, kind of a bit more strength to and confidence as well to put like bits of my story out there, and I think I hadn't before, and I think I found like a greater good in my OCD by doing that, and I could kind of now thank it a little bit, which I think is just so powerful, and changes your perception of something which I hated obviously for like years and years and years. Now I can kind of find a bit of good in it, and that's a massive turning point. Yeah,
absolutely. It's so good to see that shift in you and everything you've been sharing on social media since the camp. Big transitions.
Thank you.
No worries. And obviously right now you're somewhere up north of England. I'm not going to give too much away. Trying to climb a couple mountains. Did you want to go into that challenge?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I guess after the camp I was kind of like motivated to kind of just say, right, you know, obviously a few people in my life knew I had OCD, but not to the extent that I kind of wanted people to know. So I was trying to, you know, all week trying to think of like a challenge that I could do so that I could raise awareness of OCD and kind of try and reduce some of the stigma around that, and also raise money for OCD UK. And I kind of spent like all week trying to think about it and wasn't sure. I was going to do a step challenge. And then I just thought there has to be a link to mountains for me, because I've always talked about mountains in terms of mental health. You know, you wake up every day and you have to kind of climb a mountain in your life or in your head, and then you kind of go back to sleep, and then you do the same thing the next day. And it's always felt like that, like a massive kind of just a really long journey. So I was like, there has to be a link to mountains. And then I just thought, well, I can just climb some mountains because I'm going up north where there are lots of mountains, and, you know, I love climbing mountains anyway. I love being in nature. So I thought, well, let's just do that. And then, I kind of made the link to climb 17 mountains by the end of the year, because I think I've had OCD for about 17 years. So that's it's going to be a massive challenge, and hopefully we can kind of do the 3 peak challenge at the end of it. We'll see. But awesome. I'm up for it. I'm so up for it now. So I'm excited for that.
Cool. Yeah, it's a great challenge, and I think it's one that also helps you with your mental health, because like you said, being in nature, etc., this challenge will force that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'll put the link to your Just Given page if anyone wanted to donate on the show notes. Cool. No worries.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks.
And so big question is, would you ever want to do it again?
The camp, for sure. Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah, no doubt about it. I would probably do it tomorrow if I could. Yeah.
Awesome. I think I need a bit more rest, but
I think we all need to come down from the overwhelm and how amazing it was for a bit. But
Cool. Awesome. Thank you. So if you could call the 20-year-old Jess, what would you tell that young lady?
Oh wow. I think I would say to have hope, and also tell her that she is so much stronger than she thinks. She is greater than her fears. And just to kind of take that plunge, and even though it feels so impossible, you're going to kind of have to live in uncertainty because of the way your brain works, and that's completely okay. And it's going to be really hard, but if you live in that uncertainty, you get to fill your whole life up with all these things that you really love and care about, and you don't have to kind of keep fighting with your brain. Yeah.
Yeah, great words of advice. Cool. All right, Jess, thank you so much, obviously, for attending the camp and for your time today.
No worries. Thank you for organising it, because, it was completely life-changing.
So there you have it. I hope that gave you some behind the scenes of the camp. I hope you learned some stuff, and I hope that it inspired you. Thank you to all the campers for obviously coming, for everyone who applied, and obviously the campers again for coming on this show today. So if you want to sign up to the OCD Camp to find out when the next dates will be released, etc., head over to the OCDcamp.com and pop in your email there, or just go to the OCDcamp.com to find out more. And as always, quick disclaimer, this podcast is not a replacement for therapy, and nor should it be. Please seek treatment from a trained professional. And until we speak, take care.